In this yet still holiday season, we gather to kindle our sacred flame, the symbol of the holy mystery that exists within and beyond us. We still ourselves to honor our inherent worth and dignity, beauty and divinity, and to honor the same within others and with the cosmos itself. We still ourselves to hold this moment as a moment where transformation is possible. And we look towards this moment as a guide in how we craft and recreate the world anew. Together, we kindle this sacred flame and enter into a time of worship.
Reverend Tyler sent us a reading by Rebecca Ann Parker with which we'd like to open this service. You have to know your body as the home of God. You have to know your body as the home of God, and this is the purpose of Christmas. The rose blossoming in the wilderness is the unfolding of your pleasure as the fingers peel an orange and sweetness buds in your mouth. The bright star in the night sky is the sudden clarity of your instinct for joy. The birth cry in the night is your child falling into the dark and your arms holding her. The terror of Herod's murderous intent is your rage that would prefer death to change. The singing angel is your voice at church, not sure of the tune, but certain for a moment that there is glory. The animals breathing their warm breath in the fragile stable are your emotions, kneeling into the body of earth, at ease in the presence of God. Mary is you. God is in your body. Joseph is you, sheltering God in the world. This is the key to the mystery. The Word become flesh. We are the dwelling place.
Good morning. It is a gift to be with you all this morning. While I might be here virtually, know that our hearts and spirits are connected. I'm the Reverend Byron Tyler Coles. I use they, he pronouns, and I'm a member of your Congregational Life Staff in the Southern region. I've worked with leaders of your congregation over these last couple of years, and it is a gift once more to be in worship with you all. This morning, I offer unto you all a homily entitled, To Make a Place for the Holy. It has been just over 16 years since I first crossed the threshold into one of our congregations. I had come to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke after several years of meandering through the religious wilderness in search of a sanctuary that spoke to my then 11th grade self of hope made known, of the eternal mystery, of meaning and purpose. As I passed through the front doors that morning, I was greeted by ushers and the usual pleasantries of welcome. Now, of course, I noticed a few glances of bewilderment as my then high school self, unaccompanied by either a parent or guardian, moved into the sanctuary and sat far away from those who had already claimed their places. As I sat there, alone and somewhat afraid, I wondered what I was getting myself into this time. I had read about the history of this tradition and its liberal roots on Wikipedia, scanned through the denomination's then outdated website about its social justice efforts, and I'd even poked around the congregation's webpage in hopes of finding its What We Believe section. Though I had sworn off church just a few years prior, as I sat there, I wondered, Tyler, what in the hell are you doing here now? A quarter of the way through the service that morning, I began to count in my mind the number of times love was referenced. That morning, there were songs and prayers about it, readings and a sermon about it, and in true UU fashion, there was a guided meditation on the matter. As soon as the service ended and salutations of departure and hopeful return were exchanged, I bolted out of the building into the parking lot. As I sat behind the steering wheel of my car, I pondered, what does love have to do with it? What does love have to do with any of this? Over the years, I have routinely visited these questions in hopes of finding a useful answer in a world on fire. In my search, I realized that before we can even arrive to the answers, we must get clear first on what love is and what love isn't. One sensible place to begin with, of course, is Tina Turner's classic offering that love is simply a secondhand emotion, a result, an outcome, dare I even say a hormonal avalanche of sorts that makes us do all types of things. It is rambunctious, fleeting, unpredictable, intoxicating, even. While true, that understanding of love doesn't do much given our lived experiences and fleshy realities. For that, I turn to the insights and offerings of our tradition. Throughout the ages, our Unitarian Universalist and Unitarian Universalist predecessors spoke of a force of love that moves among and within each of us. Historically, this force was confined to a rather conventional understanding of God who bequeathed goodness unto creation, and it was through our goodness that we would reflect such back to one another. Yet over time, we have expanded our understanding of both God and the cosmos, thankfully, and now perceive love to be the holy mystery that shapes and sustains and reclaims all things. After all, love was the resounding value marked highest by fellow Unitarian Universalists in the 2005 report from the Commission on Appraisal, and it is now the central value which we proclaim as a people of faith following this year's vote at General Assembly. Love literally is the bedrock, the pull, the source from which all our other values, generosity, transformation, and interdependence, just to name a few, emerge from. Love is the center, the foundation, the bedrock. In James Baldwin's revolutionary reflection, The Fire Next Time, he writes, love takes off the masks that we fear we cannot live without and know we cannot live within. He continues by saying that he uses the word love not merely in the personal sense, but as a state of being, a state of grace, not in the infantile sense of being made happy, but in the tough and universal sense of quest and daring and growth. End quote. In these words, we receive a tangible, rugged, and frankly clear definition of love. One that I might suspect we already know, and that love is a quest of daring. Love brings no contract, nor guarantee, no certainty. It is an act of vulnerability with the self and with those whom we open ourselves to. Yet in our caution, in our learned disposition to close ourselves off to vulnerability due to apprehension or previous experiences, we must be brave and continue to dare at the risk of losing our spiritual center and our very humanity. I'll repeat that again. Yet in our caution and our learned disposition to close ourselves off to vulnerability due to apprehension or previous experiences, we must be brave and continue to dare at the risk of losing our spiritual center and our very humanity. We all know in some way that love exists beyond wins and goals, beyond tit for tat and points acquired and tasks fulfilled. Love, real love, is the sublime, awe-inspiring force that has shaped you and I. It is the beckoning whisper that calls us to be responsible to and for who we are and what we do. And in our context here, as a faithful people, as a church-going people, love is the central practice, the ultimate task of being a spiritual people. It is the glue that binds community together in the endless networks of our relationships that we conjure and sustain with one another. And it is in these relationships that our liberation is manifested and our salvation is claimed. Now, I know I just made a bold and big theological claim by saying that love is the source of our liberation and the means for our salvation. Salvation is not a word that we often say much anymore, and even hearing the word might stir memories that we would rather forget. But beyond the typical definitions and understandings of salvation, as to denote one being saved or brought into safety from the snares of sin, I was recently reminded when we take a deeper, more nuanced, more faithful look at the makeup of the word, at its root is the Latin soul, S-O-L, meaning to be made whole, to be complete, to be intact. Not perfect or just right or respectable or shiny or anything else. Simply whole and intact. In this understanding, I can imagine that our Universalist ancestors found such truth invigorating. And might have been given the way to a deeper sense of wholeness in which they felt propelled in spiritual conviction. Love for them was an all-encompassing, transformative force which they welcomed and felt accountable to as the central organizing factor of both their churches, communities, and their lives. And we can't underplay this. This was heretical. This was radical. This was even dangerous at the time. Yet this was indeed good news in a hard world then, as it is now, especially in a moment of war and genocide, of stress and despair, when democracy in our country has all but dissolved and we are left to navigate our health systems with public executions and the reaches of empirical violence have knocked on our door once more. Given all of this, we find ourselves in a spiritual moment when it is beyond fathomable for many of us to perceive the truth that we are indeed loved, let alone worthy of love. In Dr. Monica Coleman's text, Making a Way Out of No Way, a Womanist Theology, she posits that salvation is about surviving, finding meaning and quality of life. What she means here is that the work of naming and claiming salvation is an effort akin to carving out a pathway that we might take to travel through the hardness of life, which too easily and most often forces us to become hard. Closed off, hesitant, disconnected from ourselves and the greater cosmos around us. This is a day-to-day endeavor that we must take upon ourselves, and hopefully in the presence of other good souls around us, as to remember who we are and to whom we belong to. Karen Baker Fletcher, a fellow womanist theologian, shares that the wisdom and knowledge required to make decisions that promote survival, healing, and liberation are dependent on the power of memory. End quote. Ultimately, we must take the knowings acquired throughout our lifetime and put them to good use as to create a state, a world that reflects and magnifies our wholeness, that is, our inherent worth and dignity. Beloveds, at the heart of all this is the hard truth that we must create space within ourselves and within our communities for love to exist. Now, I am not talking about the too often given or perceived love that is the toothless tolerance or dignified indifference type. That type of love requires a bloody offering of human lives and spirits that has never been useful and will not be useful going forward. And too often, as Unitarian Universalists, that is the love we are talking about. And I say we must stop. Instead, I am talking about what Bell Hooks offers in Salvation, Black People, and Love, that which is the rigorous practice of love, which is a love ethic. She says this is exemplified by the combined forces of care, respect, knowledge, and responsibility. Care, respect, knowledge, and responsibility. In the doing of these things, we are more inclined to heal ourselves, our communities, and the world. Such a love ethic roots us in a practice of self-realizing authenticity over and against respectability for aimless survival, assimilation, and the various death-dealing ways that we grasp at accessing or executing power. For continuing to do as we have always done will continue to result in the same outcome. Or as Coleman points out once more, when any of us act and live as if our actions and decisions only affect us, when we deny the interdependence of the world, when we act as if we are not all connected and in need of each other, we then produce evil. Dear ones, now more than ever, we must make a place for the holy to exist within and amongst us. Our ways of being, the ways we engage our communities, the very ways that we move alongside one another is dependent on it. We must at least try to practice the vulnerability needed to make love known in such a time as this, for it is in that love, for it is in that value, for it is in this practice that we come to make and know all that is holy. You, I, us. May it be so. Ashe, and so be it.
A reading by Rosemary Wahatola Tromer entitled Because. So I can't save the world. Can't even save myself. Can't wrap my arms around every frightened child. Can't foster peace among nations. Can't bring love to all who feel unlovable. So I practice opening my heart right here in this room and being gentle with my insufficiency. I practice walking down the street heart first. And if it is insufficient to share love, I will practice loving anyway. I want to converse about truth, about trust. I want to invite compassion into every interaction. One willing heart can't stop a war. One willing heart can't feed all the hungry. And sometimes, daunted by a task too big, I tell myself, what's the use of trying? But today, the invitation is clear: to be ridiculously courageous in love. To open the heart like a lilac in May, knowing freeze is possible and opening anyway. To take love seriously. To give love wildly. To race up to the world as if I were a puppy, adoring and unjaded, stumbling on my own exuberance. To feel the shock of indifference, of anger, of cruelty, of fear, and stay open. To love as if it matters, as if the world depends on it.
Beloved, as we go forth this day, from this place made holy by our presence together, may we open ourselves to the power and presence of love. May it change how we understand ourselves, each other, and the world. May it be the guiding force, the fuel that enables us to change the world. For chaos and pain and sorrow need not be the signature nor guide of our lives, individually or collectively. May we be renewed in spirit and in community, and until we are together again. Blessings be upon you all. Be well.